Waffle. I'm David.
I'm Lindsay.
That's it.
It's Desmonds, Donders.
Hello and welcome to Wednesday Waffle. This waffle's a little bit different. We are answering the question. We had one question when I asked for questions from Emma M. Vans for the Memories. So the question was reference places we lived. So Lindsay's going to take us through the questions we've lived, and then she's even going to take us through the questions of the places we've lived. And then a guy will be along with some drone footage, if I haven't waffled on too long, and so on and so forth. Now, we haven't got a great deal of photos of places we've lived, because although we had a camera, we didn't seem to take many pictures of houses. They were more of the places we'd been. Of course, back then it was all film, so yeah. Anyway, here's Lindsay.
Our first house was 110 The Hobbins in Bridgenorth. We got this house after we got married, and it was a 3-bed house with a coal fire in the living room and a potbelly stove in the kitchen which heated the hot water, and quarry tiles on the floor. Not fun, very cold house, but it did us for the 13-14 months that we were, well, David was still at Cosford, and then we moved. The second house we had was 150 Califer Road in Forres while David was posted to Kinloss. This was a 2-bedroom house with a massive hot blown air storage heater system in the living room, which you switched on about 9 o'clock in the morning and ran cold about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, so we had to buy a Cala gas heater. It had a canary yellow kitchen, very small kitchen, and you just did not go in there with a hangover. Trust me, it wasn't worth it. So that did us for, I think it was 3 years until David got posted to St Morgan. The third house was 20 Liberator Row, St Evil in Cornwall. It was a 2-bed house with a coal fire, and it was a brick built house. Some of the houses on the estate were Cornish units which were prefab. We were lucky we got one of the newer, I don't know what you call houses. Cornwall's cold. Cornwall's really cold in the winter, and we had metal frame windows, and I used to spend 1 day a week bleaching the window frames to stop the mould getting in the house. But we were there for 3 years, so that was the third one. The fourth house was 5 Easter Road, Kinloss, because David got posted back to Kinloss, and we were in that, and it had storage heaters, only downstairs. They never had heating upstairs, ever. Sorry, I'm watching the birds flying past the window. David, there's hundreds of them there. It was a nice house. It was at the beginning of the road, so you know you weren't deeply in the estate, as it were. But while David was in the Falklands for his 4-month tour, we actually got moved out, and we moved to another house in Forres, which was house number 5. House number 5 was 110 Califer Road. This is 180, sorry.
188.
188. Oh well, memory's not as good as I thought it was. Right. Was it the 5th or 6th? 6th.
The next house.
The next house was 188 Califer Road. The house I commonly renamed as the house without windows. It only had 3 windows on one side of the house. The hall window and the bathroom and toilet windows, and all the other windows were on the other side of the house. It was also, I think it was also a blown air system, but the house was smaller, but they had the same problem. It just went cold very quickly, so you had to find another form of heating in it. But we were there for a fair few years, because I think David was at Kinloss that time for 8 or 9 years in total before he got posted. So it was a good house for us. We were in the middle, so the people on either side of us kept our house warm by having their heating on. And then we moved again. David got posted to High Wycombe, so we had the next house. The next house was 20 Nelson Close in High Wycombe. It was a fun house because the entire house, all the walls were covered in, I think it's called Artex paint thing, which basically means you walk past it and your hands got ripped to shreds. It was a horrible house. It wasn't a RAF house, it was a hiring, because there wasn't enough RAF quarters in High Wycombe for the amount of people that lived there. So basically you got a budget of how much money you were allowed to spend on rent, and you went looking to try and get a house. So David found this one. It had the guy that owned it thought he was a bit of a house designer. Trust me, he wasn't. It was a horrible house, and it was right on the main London road that got used if the M40 was jammed. So we were in it for a year, and then the guy came back from Australia and decided he wanted to sell the house, and he thought because he had sitting tenants we'd buy it off him. He'd have to pay me to take that house. So we had to move out. So along came the next house. The next house was number 4, Tether Down in Presswood. This was a 2-bed house. Lovely. The lady that was our landlady, well, she was our landlord, she was lovely. She'd never done this before, and she took a chance on us, and we had a nice time in the house, well, apart from the fact my car got stolen, but that's beside the point. We came home one weekend to find out that we'd nearly lost the house, because the house was full of smoke, because the gas boiler safety system hadn't triggered, and the gas boiler was going for all it was worth. We didn't need the heating on for 3 days. Thankfully there was no permanent damage. She phoned the gas man, and the gas man came and serviced it and fixed it, so it was fine. And we just renewed for another year's lease when David got posted back to Lossiemouth. So yeah, David's doing a happy dance behind the camera. So then came house number whatever. The last RAF quarter was 85 Reynolds Crescent in Elgin. This was a reasonably new build, built by Robertsons, and to be honest, it was the best quarter we'd ever had. It had heating upstairs, radiators downstairs. It had a utility room, and it was a nice house, and it had a garage which we filled with junk. Never had a car in it ever. And it did us good. The only problem being is when David decided to come out the RAF, it gave us an idea as to what we wanted in a house. So we went looking at Robertson's houses and the other builders in the area, and we did eventually buy a Robertson's house in Fochabers. So the last house is the one we're currently living in. It is the longest that any of us, well obviously Craig is wherever we were, he was, but it's the longest David and I have ever lived anywhere our entire lives, and it's coming up to 23 years this month, October. So we picked a bungalow because Lindsay doesn't do stairs, and we've been very happy in that house, although according to some people we're never in it. but it is the house. So I hope you've enjoyed our little stories of our houses and how many we've had. At one point I think we moved 3 times in 3 years, but that was High Wycombe because of the hirings, and then David getting posted back to Lossy. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you for watching Desmonds Donders. And remember, please take nothing but memories and leave nothing but tracks. subscribe and ring the bell for notifications, and hopefully we'll see you next time.